There's one thing all women have in common as entrepreneurs, and I can describe it using one of my favorite analogies, baseball. Go Cubs. No insult to the Sox. It doesn't matter if you were born on first base, third base, or in the dugout. We all got to score a run. You can wait for someone to bat you in, or you can make the effort and get off, try and steal a base, steal home. As businesswomen, we are always have to be ready. If you're not prepared or focused when opportunity comes, you risk getting stuck on third base forever, no matter where you start off. Like everyone, I've had to learn how to do business. I come from military background, 27 years in, where I learned discipline, decision-making under pressure, and how to lead people from different walks of life. Those lessons didn't just shape my service, they shaped how I lead. I learned these lessons from the military experience elsewhere and into the business world. One key leadership lesson was the importance of caring about people without pampering them. The best military officers I served with showed that they cared about their troops. They trained them well, made sure they were paid on time, and even cared about their food. But they also held them accountable to high standards. Their troops had to take care of their equipment, behave well under pressure, score highly on fitness tests, make themselves worthy of the job. High expectations was a way of caring, and it paid off. Motivating the troops, who in turn would then take risks and sacrifice for the group. If you're jumping out of an airplane at night with equipment strapped to you, along with maybe 50 or 60 other people in the same airplane, everyone has to work together to do their job or people get killed. While the stakes are different in business, the principles are the same. You motivate people by truly caring about them and by demanding they care about the job. One battalion commander I served with made it a practice to invite every new officer in the battalion to his home for dinner, and then to have lunch with the lieutenants in the battalion. Those are the most junior officers. These were opportunities for him to get to know them and have a conversation about what was on their mind. He would also get out on battalion runs and would lead from the front. This is leadership. He found the balance between caring for his troops and motivating them. He retired a 4-star general. The Armed Forces is an all-volunteer organization, and working in a civilian business is also a volunteer situation, both for the people that work there and the people that purchase your product or service. There has to be an agreement. The best leaders find this balance between caring for the team and motivating them to take responsibility. Success depends on it. Whether commanding a rifle company or leading staff sections or running a mid-cap business in the civilian world, these leadership skills proved as essential as having technical prowess. My father had many characteristics of the best officers I served with. I learned a lot about leadership from him as well. My father never yelled at people. He genuinely cared about their well-being, about what was going on in their jobs. He'd walk the factory floor to talk to people in great detail about their lives. He believed that everyone was there for a reason, and that everyone he worked with had the potential to make a contribution to the end product. It was his belief that in people's capabilities that shaped how he treated them, and that treatment paid off in their contribution to results. I also learned a lot of leadership lessons from my mother. The importance of caring for the welfare of other people, using good grammar, and I often reflect is, if somebody gives you something, say thank you. I really consider that one of my top important priorities, is writing the simple thank you note. Doesn't have to be a Pulitzer Prize, just get it out there. That was as valuable as any leadership lessons I learned in the Army. Also learned about, risk from her. I mean, she took a risk being pregnant with me and my two sisters. And she sacrificed. She always put the family first. And I have no doubt that if she had had the opportunity to go into business or a profession, she would have been as successful as my father. And my father recognized that. Leadership is part of success, but it's not all of it. As I grew as an entrepreneur, I had ups and downs. Sometimes the wind was at my back, and other times it was against me. Anyone who goes into the business world learns from the school of hard knocks. My dad always stressed the importance of having hands-on experience in business. The MBAs he liked the best were the ones that squared with both the intellect and the street smarts. He felt that learning from an MBA program should always be ongoing. And now at my old age, with some experience under my belt, I agree 100%. And like him, I've always believed that whenever you start off, everyone has the ability to succeed. What's the key to success? 3 points. You need to take and manage risks. You can't avoid them, but you can manage them, you can mitigate them, you can work with them. And you need to fail forward, which means learning from your failures. Mickey Mantle once said that of the 19 years that he spent in the major leagues, he spent 2 of them striking out. But he balanced that with every strikeout. He'd get 1 or 2 base hits and a walk. And that's what got him into the Hall of Fame. Didn't let the strikeout bother him. And when you need to build, and you need to build on the positive. And above all, don't avoid risk. Plan for it. This is the way you increase your odds for success. In the process of accepting, planning for, and mitigating risk helps you understand what your priorities are. What are you trying to accomplish with your business? And where might you fail? Because going through this thought process forces you to consider what you're willing to risk for what payoff. In creating and growing the Pritzker Military Museum and Library, we had a clear mission to grow our collection and have an impact by providing a space where civilians and the military could learn about our democracy through the stories of the citizen soldier. So, if we're going to have a country in which the military is controlled by civilians, how can the civilians do that if they don't know anything about the military? And they should have a source that's outside the government. And if the government wants the support of the people, they need a place where they can interact with the people. So what's the risk? Well, that people would not like the idea or the way we executed the idea. They wouldn't visit, wouldn't pay to be a member, wouldn't want to have activities there, and so on. Accepting this risk allows you to plan for it and to move forward knowing what you will do about it, and we all have to accept the risk. Learn as much as you can. Might come in handy. Second key is to learn from your failures, as mentioned earlier. Most people who succeed at anything have failed many times. Everybody fails. Nobody bats 1,000. Like failures in life, failures in business can be turned into something positive. Failures have a purpose and are almost never absolute. If we manage them adequately and learn from them, they help us avoid disaster. I've certainly had my share of failures. To start with, I was a lousy student in high school. I mostly struggled with writing, and it took me 5 years to get a diploma with a very low GPA. But from that experience, I learned more about myself. I didn't give up. I found what motivated me and how to stay motivated. With this knowledge, I went on to get a bachelor's degree with a major in history from Loyola University of Chicago, go Ramblers, and gained ROTC training, which was the equivalent of a second major. I even made the dean's list one semester. This required commitment, time, intensity, even weekend work and training. All of it counted toward my overall GPA. Then in business, I had the idea to start a couple of bed and breakfasts. I was so excited to restore these historic buildings and make them, a 5-star experience for everyone to enjoy for generations to come, that I didn't think through a full 5-year business plan. In the end, I parted ways with the business as we just weren't going to make a profit, and it was going to turn into a money pit. I still left with significant success, because even though I overspent on restoring the building, I can walk away from houses that were built, one or two of them in the 19th century, one of them in the first decade of the 20th century. And I gave them new life. They'll last for another 50, 100 years. Because if you have an old house that's been through 3 depreciation cycles, you're rebuilding, from the inside out, and it's very hard to maintain a proper balance. But if you're willing to take the risk, and above all, can you afford the risk? So, that's one of the reasons why there are definitions for what's a qualified investor. Do you want somebody in an investment that, if it doesn't work out, they're living out on the street? So you always have to keep that in mind. What resources do you have available to you? Finally, and as entrepreneurs, we all have challenges. I've certainly had mine. This is an especially important lesson when it comes to women in business. Women are often told no as they try to get ahead, or they're smeared as too ambitious, or they're not taken seriously, or, I think in my case, criticized or discriminated against based on who we are. So when you are blocked for any reason, how do you build on positives? Think, what is the advantage? How can I use my unique skills to get yes? Maybe you have a skill for creating convincing presentations, or you are charismatic and can talk your way into the right conversations, or you're good at research and networking. If you're intimidated by the long road ahead, know that every 100-mile run, begin focusing on the positive to take the first step. There was it wasn't so long ago that women weren't allowed to go to law school. They weren't allowed in the military, or when they were, it was on a very limited basis, and they rarely had a place in business. Today we've broken down many of those barriers, but the work isn't done. What's clear is there's no role women can't pursue and no space where we don't belong. My daughter Tal is a good example of this, and she's another leader I admire. She is a wife and mother, the glue to keeping the family together, and the leader for her children through the lessons of life. And a businesswoman and a philanthropist, choosing to take an interest in others to help people and communities prosper. But Tal spent some time in Israel, and as a dual citizen decided it was actually allowed herself to be drafted into the Israeli army, because in Israel women are drafted. Even though she was also a U.S. citizen, She wanted to live in Israel authentically. In the Army, before she went into the Army, she was already fluent in Hebrew, and then produced and was the broadcaster for her own radio show. She also became a licensed skydiver. I've never done a free fall skydive. I've done a lot of static line jumps in the Army, but you know, she's gone out solo and she has to pull the ripcord or, you know, crash on the earth. These accomplishments required her to take mitigated risks, to not be afraid to fail forward, and to build on the positive each step of the way. The 3 keys to success I reviewed a few moments ago. We also have a little mantra at TAWANI Enterprises. It's the acronym SLEEP. And what that stands for is safe, that's risk mitigation; legal, are you going to go to jail if you do this? Ethical, if you're made the trustee of a 2-year-old, 20 years later, can you look them in the eye and tell them you did the best you could for them and back it up with the facts? And the second E is efficient. Is it efficient? Is it cost effective? Is it feasible? And the P is for profit. And not just in dollars, not just in currency. Profit means that whatever you invested in time, energy, resources, you know, contacts that you have, are you better off at the end of the day than you were at the beginning of the day? So, you know, got too many acronyms in the Army, so tried to find at least one of my own, and that's what we use, or one of the tools. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Colonel. If you want to have a seat, I think we have time for 2 or 3 questions.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, Colonel Pritzker, thank you so much for sharing some remarks. We got a lot of questions from this audience. I'm going to try to limit it to 2 or 3. So, on leadership, risk, and decision making, as someone who has led in both military and business arenas, how do you define resilience, and how has your understanding of it evolved across different leadership roles? That was submitted by Alexandria.
Well, resilience by definition means you can respond positively to whatever adversity you face. I'd say that's the main thing. You know, if you strike out, you're gonna get another time at bat. Or if you don't, your teammate does. Doesn't have to be the end of the world.
Let's stick on the theme of leadership. This came from Monica. What was a pivotal moment when you had to make a high-stakes decision, and how did you navigate that uncertainty?
Well, one of the business activities that I'm involved in is a venture capital private equity company known as Squadron Capital, LLC. And I created that company with a very close friend, Army buddy. He and I were privates together, 82nd Airborne Division, where we were in a helicopter maintenance platoon, and we fixed helicopters and jumped out of airplanes and picked up cigarette butts in the parking lot, because we were privates at the time. But we took a crawl, walk, run approach. Now, we started that 17 years ago. And we were careful never to overextend ourselves. And we faced a lot of decisions each step of the way. And we also learned how to find the best people to help us make those decisions. Nobody does it on their own. You know, prime example of military decision making, Eisenhower, June 1944, he has to decide whether despite bad weather, whether he's going to risk the lives of, well, maybe 1 million men and sailors under fire, to take land in the continent of Europe. Well, he had to make the absolute final decision, go, no go. But to get to that point, those 1 million men and those 1 million soldiers whose lives he was risking all contributed to the point of making that decision, starting with his immediate staff, and then, the commanders and staffs of subordinate units, and finally, built on a foundation of well-trained soldiers. I mean, I think he demonstrated that. There's that famous picture of him where he's talking to the guys in the 101st Airborne Division before they're going to go jump out of airplanes and fly in with gliders. That shows that even though he was a 5-star general, he paid attention, what Snuffy on the ground at the base of the pyramid has to do. So, I think that covers a fair amount of it.
One last question for you. This is just sticking on the funding and investment theme. Throughout your career, this question's from Ellie. Throughout your career, you've invested in Chicago's future as both a philanthropist and a capitalist. When you think about the most important investments we can make today through that lens, what would be your call to action for those of us in this room? And what's one way you're doing this differently now compared to earlier in your career?
Well, no matter how well-intentioned and how lofty your goals, you always have to think in terms of sustainability. Will whatever it is you're doing work a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Or, at some point, nobody lasts forever. So how are you gonna leave it? Now then, call to action. Well, they used to have an expression. I don't know if they use it much anymore. Chicago's the city that works. So do stuff that works. And pay attention to the fundamentals. Treat people right. Your employees, your customers, your vendors. That makes a big difference. But above all, Chicago works. Sorry I'm not more original, but to me, that slogan works. Thank you.
Colonel Pritzker, thank you for your time. Let's give her a round of applause, everyone.